So today's theme is about chance. So when Kate asked me to speak like a day ago, I'm just kidding, it was like 2 weeks. But she was like, hey, I want you to speak about Chance. And I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, the first thing that came to my mind was Chance the Rapper. I don't know if any of you know Chance the Rapper. I'm like, okay, where am I going with this? Chance, prance, dance, like trying to like think of these raps. Then I was like, okay, wait, let's get back to what Chance is really about. And I want to take a chance today by telling you a story and kind of bringing it all together. Is that okay? Tell you a story? All right. So there's going to be a lot of emotions here. I'm not gonna lie, so just bear with me. I like to laugh and have a good time, but this is a serious story. So when I was 17 years old, my girlfriend my friend that was a girl, not my girlfriend, said, hey, do you want to come to this party with me? And I was like, okay, sure. She's like, yeah, it's going to be a really chill party. It's going to be a fun evening. It's going to be me, my sister's friend, and my cousin. And we're just going to go, have some drinks, hang out, eat, whatever. So I was like, sure. I had nothing better to do on Saturday night. So I decided to go to this party with her. So we walk in. It's just the 5 of us. They handed me a drink, and I started drinking, and I was having a good time. We started playing some drinking games. It was fun. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then about, I would say, 2 hours into the evening, I started feeling really weird after drinking for 2 hours. But this was a different kind of weird. This was like, I'd never experienced this type of feeling before, so I knew something was off. So I looked at my friend at the time and I said, hey, I'm not feeling really good. Can I like lay down, or I think I need to go to sleep, or something's really off? And she's like, oh yeah, come over here. I'll put you right into this room. And so she puts me into the room. And the next thing I recall is waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, completely naked, next to her male cousin. So the unthinkable and unimaginable happened in my life. I was date raped. And as you can imagine, being 17 years old, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like, the last thing I remember is I was really tired, and my friend, these people that I thought I trusted, just put me into this room to go to bed, and now this. And so the first thing that I thought of when I woke up was, I'm not on birth control, because quite frankly, I've never had sex. So, am I pregnant? That was like the first thing that was running through my mind. So I looked at this guy who I met the night before and was a nice guy, I thought, and I said, hey, did you use protection? That's all I said. And he just looked at me and laughed and said, yeah, it's right there. And there was just this used condom wrapper lying on the floor. So at age 17, I didn't know what to think. As you can imagine, I just put on my clothes, I left, I got out of there, and for years, I blamed myself. For years I thought, I shouldn't have drank that much, I shouldn't have went to that party, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I should have known better, I'm a good girl, I don't do this. But now suddenly I was just carrying around all this shame, all this guilt, all this emotional trauma. So it was 4 years later, it was I think I was a junior in college, and I went to another party. And this time I wasn't drinking, I was completely sober, and I just met these girls that night. So my friend took me to the party, and I just met like 6 new girls that night. And we go upstairs, and we're talking, having a good time, and they're all, getting a little tipsy and emotional. And we're standing there just talking about our lives and talking about things, and all of a sudden this one girl completely opens up and she starts crying, and she tells me that she's been a victim of sexual assault. And one by one, these 6 girls go around and tell stories how they've been a victim of sexual assault or abuse or date rape. And it was at that moment realized what had happened to me 4 years ago. I realized that I too was a victim of sexual assault. And so, as you can imagine, not only was I carrying all this shame and guilt and torture pretty much in my body for the past few years, but I didn't even like myself. I didn't even know who I was because this demon was just kind of there and just always present. But when these girls started sharing their stories with me, I started realizing that this happens way too much. And the fact that there were 6 of them and 7 of us together, and the statistics are 1 in 3 globally will be a victim of a sexual assault, well, that's just the numbers that are reported. And so I made a pact to myself that day to seek help. And I had to learn to love myself again, to accept myself again, and to be myself again. But as I was thinking about it, and thinking about this talk this morning, isn't that what we're all trying to do? Regardless if we've been a victim of sexual assault or something traumatizing happened to us, aren't we all just trying to really figure out who we really are? I mean, how many people change like who they are like every day? I know I do. Every day I'm like, wait, I like this, I like that, I want to do this. But I feel like we're always trying to figure out this deeper part of who we are. And so when we talk about chance, I'm bringing it back. You see where I'm going with this. When we talk about chance, what I really want to encourage you is to take a chance on being vulnerable and expressing authenticity in your work, in your life, and most importantly with yourself. I think vulnerability is truly the gateway to not only knowing yourself more, loving yourself more, but it opens that creative floodgate that we all have within us. And the moment that I chose to be vulnerable and seek help and say, you know, this wasn't right, what happened to me wasn't right, and it's not okay, and I need help, was the moment that I not only was able to heal myself, but now as a speaker and an author and all these creative things that I do, I'm able to help others. And through that, we together are able to create a true global change. Vulnerability is really the birthplace for all of this. So today I want to share with you kind of 3 ways that vulnerability really helps, again, transform yourself, the lives of others, and your community. So the first one is vulnerability truly helps transform you. I think about that night when I was 17, and I think, if I never shared that with anyone, or if I never decided to be vulnerable about that, I would still feel that shame and that guilt. But by letting it out and by expressing it, I'm able to truly feel healed in that. Now, it's not to say that, I don't still go to therapy or I don't have flashbacks or things don't stem, but really it cultivated such an amazing healing in my own life and throughout my journey. And I want to encourage you to think about a time in your life where you were able to be a little bit vulnerable and say, hey, this happened and it wasn't okay. And again, it doesn't have to be something as traumatic as sexual assault. It can be just sharing your feelings with someone, saying, hey, I need to express this. I've never told anyone this. And that can start to transform your own self so that you can love yourself more, you can accept yourself more, and more importantly, you can be yourself more. The second thing is vulnerability truly heals others. And I've seen this time and time again throughout my work as a health coach and now a sexual assault advocate, is that, a survivor advocate I should say, is that the more that we can share our journey with others, the more healing we can offer to the world. And I think it's actually a disservice that we're not sharing it, because that's how human beings relate through connection. Kate was like, that's snowflake outside, at the beginning. And we're like, yeah, everyone didn't have their coffee yet, so they were like, yeah. But
they're great. Look.
Yeah. But connect with one another. We want to be able to share that common human experience. And we want to know that we too are not alone. So yeah, the weather's cold and it sucks. You think that too? Great. Now I'm gonna get my postage at the mailbox or the mail store and leave. But it's because we have that tendency to want to relate to one another. So by sharing your story, by owning up and sharing those vulnerable pieces of yourself, can not only heal you, but it'll start to change others as well. You don't know how many times I've given talks, and this happened to me just in September. I gave a talk about my experience of sexual assault, and this woman came up to me. She was 40 years old, and she said, Lindsey, the same thing that happened to you happened to me. And this is the first time no one knows about this. No one knows. I've swept it under the rug, but I'm going to tell you because I can relate to you, because I can connect with you. And this woman emailed me months later, and she went on to get healing, and she's really opening up about this issue, and that is the true benefit of being vulnerable. It's as much for you as it is for others. And like I said earlier, it's a disservice if you do not own up and share your stories with others to help heal. And then the last one is, so vulnerability can help heal yourself, can help heal others, and it can truly, I believe that vulnerability can transform great change in our community and in the world. I look at, and today I'm talking about sexual assault, but it can be seen in many other arenas in your own life. Whenever I was 17, this was 9 years ago, you didn't talk about sexual assault. I only knew what sexual assault was, quite honestly, from Law and Order SVU episodes. That's how I got my information. And it's just something that was hush-hush. You didn't talk about it. People didn't want to come forward and say anything, and women and men, because sexual assault can happen to anyone, were just kind of left with shame and guilt and their own issues. Now, because people like yourself are choosing to be vulnerable, or choosing to stand up and say, this happened to me, it sucks, it's uncomfortable. Do you think I like talking about sexual assault and condoms and waking up naked? I don't like talking about that stuff. But it has to happen. Someone has to do it. Someone has to be that voice and say, hey, this happened, and it's not okay. And through that, other people will start stepping up. And then this ripple and this domino effect occurs, and then true change transforms in our communities and, honestly, in the world. I've seen this time and time again. Just recently, I don't know if you guys have seen Columbia University, the mattress project. Have you seen that? So this woman carried around her mattress until Columbia would take her rapist off from campus. Do you know how vulnerable that is, to walk around with your mattress that you were raped on and say, this is not okay? That's extremely vulnerable. But now this project, it's called the Mattress Project, it started impacting colleges globally and creating true change on campus. The Obama administration just launched last year, or this past year, I believe, their sexual assault task force. This is something that no one was talking about several years ago, and suddenly people are, and it takes vulnerability. It takes people like you and like me to stand up and to be vulnerable about these issues and about our experiences, so that we can not only transform our lives, the lives of others in our community. And the last thing that I really think vulnerability does is it allows you to fully 100% be who you are and be yourself. So you no longer have to be afraid of talking to someone and thinking, oh my goodness, what are they going to think about me? Are they going to like me? Are they going to say that I'm weird because I like to rap? No, you know that I like to rap. I show up, I own it, and it's still good. And I think that is a gift in of itself, and a gift that you can give yourself, is by being vulnerable so that you can truly be who you are and not have to worry about it, not have to constantly have these thoughts in your head that are, am I doing the right thing? Am I good enough? Why am I worthy of love? But instead, vulnerability can show you all of those things, even all the sucky things that you think about yourself, and you say, you know what? yeah, but I'm owning this, or yeah, but it's me and it's who I am. And by you knowing this, we can have a better relationship. You can have better relationships with others and yourself. Does that make sense? Good. So, how are we on time?
Okay.
Good? Okay. So, I guess in closing, really, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, I want to encourage you to be vulnerable. Maybe today, maybe this week, maybe this month, in some area of your life that maybe there's just a hint of uncomfortable there. And maybe it's something that you haven't been quite ready to go to or touch on or to talk about. But I want to encourage you to just start inching there, just little by little, and start breaking down those barriers and start showing up and being a little bit more vulnerable. Maybe it's in a blog post. It's always a good way to start because, no one can see you. It's not like a room of 100 people. You're like, hey, this happened to me, and you should know about it. But maybe a blog post is a good place to start. Or maybe just a friend, or maybe a counselor. But just taking those steps to be a little bit more vulnerable, because I want you to understand how needed that is in our society and locally here in Pittsburgh, and how that can ripple out into the world. So can you all be more vulnerable this week? Yeah.